Hello and welcome to another exciting tutorial. Today we are going to learn how to set up RAID 10 array on a Raspberry Pi 4, or you can also use a Raspberry Pi 5. But before we dive into the details, let's understand what RAID 10 is and why you should consider building one. Now RAID 10, also known as RAID 1 plus 0, is a combination of two RAID levels. RAID 1, which is mirroring, and RAID 0, which is striping. This means you get best of the both worlds, the redundancy and reliability of RAID 1 and the performance of a RAID 0. Whether you're building a home lab, a media server, or just looking for a reliable NAS backup solution, RAID 10 can be your answer. Now to get started, here's everything you need. You will need a Raspberry Pi 4 or Raspberry Pi 5, a USB 3.0 hub. Make sure you use a hub that you can power with external power supply, meaning only buy a USB hub that can be powered externally. You also need a micro SD card, 16 GB or larger, a card reader, at least 4 solid state drives or hard drives. Ideally, all 4 should be of same size. Now you can choose different capacity drives in your array, but the RAID 10's finest storage is going to be the twice of the smallest capacity drive. For example, if you choose one 128 GB drive and other 3 of different capacity higher than 128 GB, you are still going to get the double of 128 GB, which is 256 gigs. So yeah, keep that in mind. Next, you will also need 4 SATA 3 to USB 3.0 cables or enclosure. We are going to use these to connect our 4 hard drives or SSDs to our Raspberry Pi using the 3.0 hub. You can also 3D print this case if you have a 3D printer, or you can use a 3D printer service to get it printed. Now, once you have all the components, go to your PC. If you have a Windows PC, Ubuntu, or maybe Mac OS system, on that system, you have to go and download the Raspberry Pi Imager tool and install the Raspbian Pi operating system. Make sure while installing the OS, you click on the settings and type a host name for the SSH connection. Also enable the SSH from the settings and then flash the OS. You can find the details of how to flash Raspbian Pi OS on Raspberry Pi SD card in the description down below. So yeah, go ahead and flash the Raspberry Pi OS first. Once you have flashed and installed the OS on the micro SD card, you can remove it from the card reader and connect it to your Raspberry Pi. Now after connecting the card, you have to power on your Raspberry Pi and also connect the Ethernet cable coming out from your router. This is very important because we are not going to use Wi-Fi network for this. We need a constant connection with your router using Ethernet wire. Now the next thing is to find out the IP address, and for this we can use a network scanner app. For example, you can use Fing on your smartphone. The other way is to log into your router's admin panel and go to DHCP settings and then find the IP address of your Raspberry Pi. Now once you have the IP address, I'm going to use the Windows system, so I'm going to install the Putty app on my Windows and I'm going to use that for the SSH connection. If you're using Mac or Ubuntu, you can use the command line, the terminal app on your system. Since we are on Windows, we are going to use Putty app. So on Putty, you have to enter the IP address of the Raspberry Pi or the host name that you set up while flashing the OS. Then click on open and then type the name and the password. Press the enter key. And once you are logged in, you can update and upgrade the repositories by running these commands, which is sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade. If you see any prompt like do you want to continue, just type Y and hit the enter key. Now once this upgrade is successful, next thing we need to do is install the MDADM and Webmin. Now MDADM is a Linux utility that you can use to build, manage and configure software RAIDs on your Linux based system such as the Raspberry Pi OS or Ubuntu. So install it using this command sudo apt install MDADM. Now this will not take longer. If you see again any prompt, do you want to continue, just type the Y key and press enter. Now once the MDADM is installed, next thing we need to do is install the Webmin server. Now Webmin is a web-based system administrative tool for the Unix-based operating system such as the Raspberry Pi OS. It provides an intuitive graphical user interface to manage all aspects of your server. So yeah, we are going to install Webmin, and to install it, you have to first open the apt sources list using this command sudo nano etc apt sources list. This is going to open the sources list, and now we are going to move to the end using the arrow keys and paste the following in the putty. And then once this is done, we are going to press Control key and X key, and then type Y and then hit the enter key. This will save the changes we have made to the sources list. Next thing, we need to install the GPG key corresponding to this repository that we have just added. Now once this is done, we are ready to install Webmin. And to do that, first we need to update the repositories because we have made some changes, and then we will run this command sudo apt install webmin -y and press the enter key, and this is going to install the Webmin server on our Raspberry Pi OS, which we are going to use to manage our software RAID later after building it. Now once the Webmin is installed, we can access the user interface using the Raspberry Pi IP address at port 10,000. So we are going to open the web browser and enter the IP address of our Raspberry Pi :10,000. Press the enter key, and this is going to open the Webmin user interface. Now you can log in to this user interface using the SSH username and password that we use for the SSH connection. Same user ID, same credential you can use to log into Webmin. Now once you are logged in to the Webmin, you can connect all 4 hard drives to your Raspberry Pi at this stage. And for that, what you need to do is connect your USB hub, the powered USB hub, to your Raspberry Pi USB 3.0 port, and then power the USB hub using the external power supply. If it comes with a power supply, use that. Otherwise, if you have a USB hub like me, which can be powered using external micro USB data cable, you can power it and then connect all the 4 SSDs or hard drive, whatever you have. Now once the drives are connected and the USB hub is also connected to a Raspberry Pi, what you need to do is go to your Webmin user interface, and there you have to click on hardware partitions on local disk option. Now this will show all the partitions, all the drives connected to your Raspberry Pi. So you will see the SD card, which is at the top, and rest 4 are the connected hard drives. Now once all the drives are recognized, we need to create partitions on all the drives, and for that we can use the Webmin interface, and we can also use the command line interface, which is by using fdisk. You can use any one. I'm going to use the Webmin interface for the ease. So let's click on one of the externally connected SSDs. I have 4 SSDs, by the way, 128 GB each. The next option you will see is of wiping the partition. So click on wipe partitions, and from the options choose MS-DOS, and then click on wipe and relabel. Next, we need to go back and click on add primary partition, and this time we are going to choose Linux ext from the drop down and then click on create. Now we are going to repeat these steps for the other remaining 3 hard drives or SSDs that we have, and create Linux ext partitions on all 4 drives. So let's just do that. Once all the hard drives or SSDs are formatted and partitioned with Linux ext partitions, go to hardware, Linux RAID, and from drop down choose RAID 10 striped and mirrored. Next, you need to click on the create RAID device of a level button. Now next we need to choose the drive partitions. The RAID 10 requires at least 4 hard drives, so we are going to choose all 4 partitions that we created from the partitions in RAID list. To choose all 4 SSDs or hard drives partitions, you need to hold the control button on your keyboard and then use the left click to select the hard drives. Now once all the hard drives are selected, all 4, keep everything else default and then click on create. Now this may take a little bit to complete, a little while, so just wait, and once this is finished, the Webmin will create a RAID 10 array and will list it under the hardware Linux RAID section as dev MD0 or maybe MD125 or like any digit after MD. So most probably it's going to be MD0. So yeah, we have the RAID 10 array ready at this stage. Now we need to format it and then mount it and then install the Samba server to access it over the network. So let's just do that. Now for that we are not going to use the Webmin interface. We are going to use the SSH command line or the terminal. So let's just go to the terminal and then type this command. This is going to format the RAID 10 array. This won't take much time. Just enter it, press enter. Make sure you change the dev MD0 with your RAID name, whatever it is, MD0, MD125. Just edit that part and then press the enter key. Now this will format the RAID 10 array with ext4 file system. Now next thing we need to do is create a mount point, and mount point is basically a directory that we are going to create on our system and then mount our RAID formatted RAID partition on this directory. So then we will be able to read and write to that directory. First let's create a directory, sudo mkdir. You can create a directory anywhere. I'm going to create in media. So let's do that. Media Samba NAS. I'm going to name it Samba NAS. Next I'm going to mount the dev MD0, which is my RAID array partition, to this directory. So the command is very simple. Sudo mount the file system and the RAID array name dev MD0 and then the directory path media Samba NAS that we created. Press the enter key and this is going to mount it. Now we need to change the ownership so that we are able to read and write to this directory. And for that we are going to change the owner of the mount point using this command sudo chown ravi. You have to replace this with your username that you created while flashing the OS, and that the username that you're using for the Webmin and SSH connection, just use that here. So ravi media Samba NAS, which is the mount directory. Now this is all done. At this stage we have created a RAID 10 array on our Raspberry Pi successfully, and we can read and write to this directory. You can download any file or upload it directly from your Raspberry Pi OS interface, and since I'm using a command line interface, I can only use commands to download. But if you chose the GUI Raspberry Pi OS, you can use that to download files or transfer files from your devices. But if you want to access this over the network, you need to install Samba, the Samba server. And to install that, you can use the Webmin interface. It's very easy to do that, or you can just run a command sudo apt install Samba, and this is going to install the Samba server on your system. Once installed, we are going to edit the Samba configuration file. We are going to add the location, the mount path into this Samba configuration file. You can get this configuration file code in the description below. You can just copy it and then paste it. If you created the same directories, just copy and paste it, and then click on Ctrl X, Y and hit the enter key. This is going to save it. Now we need to restart the Samba server using this command, and once it's restarted, the changes will take effect. And if you go to your PC or any of your device, you can just put the IP address in the run command on Windows if you're using that, or on your iPhone you can go to the file manager and there you can choose connect to server, enter the IP, and then enter the credentials, which is Ravi, and by default Ravi and the SSH password same, and you will be able to access it. In case you are not able to access it, you can create a Samba user and then use that particular user account to log in to your NAS, RAID 10 NAS. And once you have access on your system, you can transfer files to and from your RAID 10 array. Now it is very important to update the FS tab or the file system table to include our RAID 10, so that whenever Raspberry Pi restarts, our RAID 10 auto mounts and we are able to access it, so that we don't have to manually mount it. So for that, what we need to do is find the UUID of the MD0 and then add it to the FS tab file system table. So let's run the command sudo blkid, and this will show the UUID of all our partitions. We need to copy the RAID 10 partition UUID. So copy this, and then next command we need to run is sudo nano etc fstab. This is going to open the fstab file, and here we need to paste this code. Just replace my UUID with the UUID you have copied, and the next part is media Samba NAS, which is the mount point. If you are using something different name on different location, make sure you update this. The next thing is ext4, which is the file system, and defaults no time. This will remain same. Once you have pasted, be careful when you paste this, because if you do anything wrong and if your Raspberry Pi restarts, it's going to boot into the safe mode, and from there you will have to fix this to boot your Raspberry Pi normally. So make sure you don't do any mistake. Be careful, and then press the Ctrl X key, type Y, and hit the enter key to save the changes. To see that your changes are saved, run this command cat etc fstab. This is going to show you what all is there in the fstab file, and once confirmed, your RAID 10 will be auto mounted whenever your system restart, your Raspberry Pi restart. So you don't have to worry about it. You can just install or put this Raspberry Pi near your router and all 4 hard drives or SSDs along with the USB hub in a 3D printed case maybe, and you can use it. So yeah, and there you have it, your very own RAID 10 array on your Raspberry Pi 4 or Raspberry Pi 5, whatever you're using. In case you encounter any issues during the installation, setup or configuration, or after setting up the RAID or restart of your Raspberry Pi, you encounter any issues, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll be happy to help you. Thank you for watching this video. Stay curious, keep learning, and most importantly, have fun with your RAID 10 setup. Until next time. Bye-bye.